Welcome to the Ground and Pone Podcast, a weekly show for fans of combat sports, gaming, entertainment, and plenty more. I'm Brian Shea, senior editor at Game Informer, joined by Scott Fontana, the New York Post's MMA reporter. We don't have a UFC card this weekend, so we're probably just going to be spending more time on the gaming side of things this week, but also chatting about entertainment related to video games. We'll have our spoiler-free impressions of the first episode of the Halo TV series, plus I saw the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie. But first, Scott, how are things going over on the East Coast?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's always nice to be an hour into the future from you because we can warn you about things to come.
Oh, that's how that works.
Is that how time works?
Well, I mean, I remember that's how Y2K worked. Like when Australia was celebrating like New Year's 2000, everybody was like, oh, well, their infrastructure didn't collapse and their society didn't devolve into anarchy. Like we might be okay when the clock strikes midnight.
You know, that's actually the second Y2K reference for me of the day, because my buddy was talking about how the 90s might have been like the best that we're ever going to get because it was before everything got terrible, you know, in the last 20 years.
We had technology, but we didn't have like this much technology.
Yeah. I couldn't come. I was like, man, is he right? I'm like, I don't think so, but like maybe. I don't know.
We also had to deal with Batman and Robin.
Oh, God. Yeah, Batman movies got a lot better. Yes, in the last 20 years. I will say that. Mostly,
all superhero movies
mostly.
did.
Yeah, that's true. Superhero movies definitely evolved, starting in 2000 with X-Men.
Oh, yeah.
That really was like the demarcation point.
I'm talking to James Marsden today. Speaking
really?
of X-Men. Yeah, Cyclops himself.
All right.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Almost said hi.
I will. So, Scott. Yeah,
that's my name.
That is. I also was confused because I was thinking Cyclops and Scott Summers.
We're
which
both
is interesting.
Scotts. It's true.
That's really funny.
There's a few of us out there.
But yeah, Scott, we are talking a lot of stuff today related to gaming entertainment, which, you know, is kind of adjacent to our wheelhouse here, which is MMA and video games. But first, you know, let's talk about what we're playing right now, because there's a lot of stuff coming out these days. I have 3 games on my list. I've been talking about how Dying Light 2 has been kind of taking up so much of my time. I think last week I mentioned that I've moved on to Elden Ring. I am still playing Elden Ring. That's still like my main game. But I'm also checking out Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which is the new Kirby game that just hit this past Friday. And then I've been streaming a little bit with Game Informer for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Unfortunately, the servers crashed in the middle of our stream, so I was watching Tiny Tina's Wonderland for about an hour, and then yeah, but I've played it a little bit. It's super fun. If you like the fantasy setting and like the D&D style like gameplay with like Borderlands infrastructure, this game is totally for you. I don't know if you followed that game at all.
No, I mean, only vaguely. I'm not really I didn't play a whole lot of like Borderlands and all that stuff, so I have almost no attachment to any of the properties or any offshoots. And I know this is like a spinoff basically. So
yeah,
the only Borderlands property I've actually really played was the Tales of the Borderlands from
so good.
Yeah, it was
from
solid.
Telltale.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Yeah, I love Telltale. But yeah, that one I don't have a whole lot of familiar with. What about Kirby? Talk to me a little bit about Kirby, your first impressions with that one.
So Kirby is like, it's like the first time that he's been in the 3D realm. Like
right.
He's always been kind of 2D with like some sort of gimmick, like whether it's Kirby's Epic Yarn or Kirby Star Allies or Rainbow Curse, where it's like there's a different gimmick for every 2D Kirby game. Unless you're talking about like the 3DS games, which again were 2D, but like they were just pretty much just solid platformers. Like there was one called Planet Robobot, which was very good, but it was like he could summon like a giant mech to come up and like wreck shop. But
so how's the kind of like the open? It's an open world, or is
it's not open
3D?
world? I think.
Okay.
Have you bought Super Mario 3D World? But have you played it at all yet?
No, I haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay, so it's more set up like that, where there's like a hub world where you choose like what level you want to go play, and then you go, and it's like a linear stage. But there are some minor exploration elements, like you can go off the beaten path just a little bit and find like either there's bonus objectives that you can complete, like you know, there's like tulips or like flowers that you can like find and like you cause them to bloom, and it's like, all right, you bloomed one of the 5 flowers on this stage. So it's almost
sounds like a Banjo-Kazooie, like a Super Mario 64-ish type of thing.
It is, but there's also a defined start and a defined finish.
Okay, a little more linear than that.
Yeah. So it's a little bit more linear, but there are some explorative elements, and you know, you're finding Waddle Dees, you're restoring this town. And as you build up this town, there's actually new mini games that unlock. So there's like a cooking mini game that you can do, and like all these are like considered jobs. Like you can go fishing, stuff like that, and all those can be used to earn money, and then you can buy upgrades to Kirby's powers through the money. And it's just it's a super delightful game. I'm still extremely early in it, but it's a good time. I've been talking about it a lot on my other podcast, so I'm
things
familiar.
Nintendo.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with how it progresses, but I haven't seen it for myself yet. But it's a lot of fun, and I am looking forward to playing more of it.
I look forward to hearing more about it. I've never been like a huge Kirby guy, like personally. It's not like I hate Kirby or anything, but I didn't play a lot of the games growing up, so I don't have a strong attachment to that property. So just I would consider playing it for sure, especially if I'm hearing good things. Which, I mean, it sounds like no one's really down on the game. I haven't seen around.
Yeah, and I was actually surprised. Our reviewer, I think, gave it a 9 out of 10, which caught me off guard. I thought it was going to be good, but I didn't realize it was going to be that good.
You thought it'd be like maybe like a high 7s, 8.
No, I was thinking like maybe like an 8.5, something like that, because like everybody was saying it looked really good and like was playing well, and then he submitted it. And I was like, whoa. When I was editing it, I was like, this sounds really good.
All righty. Well, yeah, I mean that is nice to see. I'm definitely behind on stuff like what are we playing right now? I'm playing nothing because I got a lot of stuff going on with work this week. It's a crazy week, and I just kind of and also I have been it's over now, but I've been helping my son build his Pinewood Derby car.
That's right. How'd that go?
We built just a speed demon, my friend.
Nice.
It's called Chocolaka 36. That is the name of the car. 36. Which we had to correct the MC who was calling it Chocolata. Couldn't read the last part. Sorry. It's there. But he built he was second place in his den. But wow. I think honestly, I think he probably had like one of the 3 fastest cars. His fastest time got disallowed because a car 2 slots away crashed, so they had to run it again, and he ran like slower the second time.
So, I mean, changed.
Make no mistake, my son is 6.5 years old and was just happy as a clam to see his car going. So he didn't even care about the results. And I I was rooting for him, but like when I saw he didn't care that much, I'm like, yeah, he's having a good time. This is great.
It's hilarious because I remember when I was in Cub Scouts, I did my first Pinewood Derby, and my grandfather, who was a literal rocket scientist, always would help me build these Pinewood Derby cars. He's like the handiest guy ever, and also an absolute like brilliant guy who like knew physics and everything. We had no idea what we were doing the first time. Like we didn't know like, all right, well, like what are the best practices for making a Pinewood Derby car? Mm-hmm. And I came in 6th in my pack. My first time doing it, like overall, like all the dens coming together to form the pack. At least that's how it was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I was 6th overall in my pack. So I easily won my den and then like won 6th overall. And then we're like, all right, well, I know how we can do this better next time. Like we both like had like ideas of like, all right, we saw like other people's designs and like, we're like, all right, we can do this better next time. I was never good at it again. Like I think we like got in our own heads, like the success of like what could we do to improve this? And then like it was either beginner's luck or like I don't know. I was never the den winner ever again.
Yeah, so I mean we'll see what we get out of this, but I'll tell you what I did to prepare for this, because I am not the most like handy building things or anything. Like I can do it. I don't think I'm kind of helpless, but and obviously evidence here says that I did a pretty decent job working on this with my son, but I didn't really know where to go from here. I'd done this with my dad when I was a kid, but he probably did a lot of it. And here's like, yeah, here, sand this a little bit and paint it. That's what kids do, to a certain degree, especially with a little kid like mine. You can't really give him a saw and be like, yeah, why don't you just cut this wedge here? But I looked at what to do. I watched some videos and they said, okay, you can kind of drill here. You can buy these weights and stuff like that. So I did all those things and it ended up coming out pretty darn good. I don't know where it ranked in the pack, but I know it wasn't top 3 because it did go to we did go to the championship round. Wasn't top 3, but I could swear to you it was probably 4th. So he did a good job. He's happy with his little trophy. I mean, that to me, it was just a total win because he's so happy. And he's actually very interested. He wants to be an engineer one day, my little guy. So he very much I wanted to have him understand why the card did things. So that's why I was like, you know what, let's try to let's do this the right way. Let's look into stuff. And then I explained to him as we do every part of it. I even let him kind of hold the drill when we drilled holes to put the weights in. I mean, I'm not letting him hold it on his own, but I'm doing it. And I'm like, here, you can hold the bottom of it.
Yeah.
So that he thinks he's doing it. And I think that is the goal here. Like they say, it's the kids, let them do it. Don't get competitive. I don't get competitive about it. I didn't get competitive about it, but I did want him to know every step. And I wanted us to go as hard as we could to kind of figure it out because he likes that stuff. And I think he really had a good time with it.
So you're not going to be running up on any other parents outside of a Poppy Steakhouse?
Is that a thing?
That's where Colby Covington was allegedly assaulted.
Oh, right. Yeah. I was like, did this happen at the Cub Scouts too? I wasn't putting on my MMA hat for a second. Yeah. No, we won't be doing that.
You will not be putting on a hoodie and a mask. And,
well, no one was insulting anyone's family there. I have to say, it was a much more family oriented experience.
It would actually be more acceptable almost to insult because the whole family's involved and done. They're not just bystanders like the other ones. You're actually involved in the process here.
That's true. Yeah, you gotta let them fend for themselves though, unless you're standing up for someone in your family at the Oscars.
Yeah, a lot of people defending their family's honor these days.
Yeah, it's actually been kind of a thing lately, for better and worse.
Yeah,
probably not a topic we need to even dwell on anymore.
I think everybody's sick of talking about Will Smith. I mean, they were sick of it 3 days ago. So
yeah. And now you're listening to this several days later. I'm sure you don't want to hear anymore, and we'll spare you, dear listeners. But Brian, there is actually to stick with games here and get back a little bit to what we're talking about. There's some big news that actually broke this morning, the day we're recording.
Yeah,
changes at last. Then we knew this was coming to PlayStation Plus.
Yes. So it's been the same price this entire time, and it's the same benefits where you get all right, you get online play, you get the 2 free monthly PlayStation Plus games, and then cloud storage and all that stuff.
Well, they did bump it $10 a couple years ago. So but yes.
But it's been largely the same suite of benefits, right? Mm. Now they still have that one. It's staying the same price, which I'm looking at it right now is $60 a year, which, whatever. We're all
usually hunt around and get a $50-ish card on discount. That's what I typically do.
Yeah, they usually will do that. I have it on auto renew because it's I need it for my job anyway.
What I do is I always make sure I just stay a year ahead, but I'll always buy the discount because it saves me money.
I try to do that as well. If I spot Wario64 on Twitter is amazing at tweeting out deals.
Yes, everyone follow Wario64.
And if he has something where it's a Nintendo Switch Online subscription or an Xbox Game Pass membership or something like that that's discounted, I will usually buy it because if you add that to your account, it just adds on to the back end. And it's all right, well, I'm currently, I think, on a really, really deeply discounted Game Pass subscription, and I still have another year and a half of it because every time I see it on sale, I just add on to the back end of my subscription.
Well, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like I'm gonna stop that subscription anytime soon. And that's also, I think, why PlayStation is announcing the 2 additional tiers that they announced earlier today.
Yes.
So that's PlayStation Plus Essential. The one that you already have if you're a PlayStation Plus subscriber today.
Yes. Nothing changes if you're Essential.
PlayStation Plus Extra, if you want to be a little extra. It's all the stuff from the original, the first tier that I mentioned. Then it adds a catalog of up to 400 of the most enjoyable PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games, including blockbuster hits from our PlayStation Studios catalog and third-party partners. Games in the extra tier are downloadable for play. So
this is all per the PlayStation blog announcement.
Yes. This is the PlayStation blog announcement that I'm reading from right here. So this sounds like the equivalent to their Game Pass, where you pay this yearly fee, which is $100, or if you want to go monthly, it's $15 a month, and you get access to up to 400 games from this generation and last generation, which is comparable to what Game Pass is doing now. I mean, Game Pass covers the 360 era and the original Xbox era as well. So it's more than just like the Xbox One and Xbox Series X era. But this is up to 400 games is nothing to sneeze at, and that's a really good catalog of.
And we don't
games.
know which ones necessarily right now, but
Scott, they said the most enjoyable, so it's only going to be the best games.
I'm sure that is strictly what it will be. Yes,
wink
no
and nod. Garbage included. That's $100 a year or $15 a month, depending on which one you want to go with. And then there's one more tier. Well, actually, there's two more tiers technically, but one more actual tier. It's called the PlayStation Plus Premium, and it has all the benefits from the first two tiers, but then adds up to 340 additional games, which include streaming PS3 games, which, I'm not a big streaming gaming fan because it's never quite as good as playing locally.
I don't like it either.
That's fine. And then a catalog of beloved classic games available in both streaming and download options from original PlayStation, PS2, and PSP, which is interesting. Plus cloud streaming access for the original PlayStation 2, PSP, and PS4 games offered in the extra and premium tiers, where PlayStation Now is currently available in like whatever markets. And then you can stream games from using your PS4, PS5, or PC, which is something Xbox has done something really cool that it doesn't sound like PlayStation is quite doing here. One of the coolest benefits of Xbox cloud streaming is if I have an Xbox One and I don't have an Xbox Series X and a game comes out on Xbox Series X, like Flight Simulator, that I don't think that's on Xbox One. I think it's only on Xbox Series X. If you stream that game, you can stream it using an Xbox One because the Xbox One isn't powerful enough to play that game. But if you're streaming it, your phone is powerful enough. Yeah. So that's something that's really cool is you don't need the newest hardware if you're fine playing the game streaming and you're like a Game Pass subscriber. It doesn't sound like PlayStation is doing that here because they're saying they offer cloud streaming access for original PlayStation, PS2, PSP, and PS4. But it doesn't say anything about PS5. But you can stream on PS4, PS5, and PC. But playing those games on PC is going to be super cool. And that's going to be good for people who like to stream. And then also in premium, time-limited trials will be offered in this tier. So customers can try select games before they buy. So we're bringing back the demos, baby.
But we're making sure that you have to pay for a service to get to them.
And how much do you pay for it? $120 a year.
Or $18 a month.
Yeah. And I'm seeing this at the bottom. Select markets, PlayStation Plus Deluxe. This is not going to include us because we are in markets with cloud streaming. It says for markets without cloud streaming, PlayStation Plus Deluxe will be offered at a lower price compared to premium. It includes a catalog of beloved classic games from the original PlayStation, PS2, and PSP for download play, plus the limited time game trials.
Yeah, that's not going to affect a lot of
us. But if somebody happens to be in a market where streaming is not an option, there you go.
I do see here though, one of the things they do mention a couple of titles that will be included at launch. I guess it's in both extra and premium. Death Stranding, God of War, Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Mortal Kombat, and Returnal.
All very good games.
Yeah, that actually is kind of exciting for me because I did want to dip back in to Miles Morales. I beat it already. But as at least I've told you before, I don't even know if I mentioned on this show, I can be kind of a trophy hunter when it comes to games. I like to complete and get platinums and stuff. I have somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 or 80 now platinum trophies. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Some I'm more proud of than others. But I'm very close with Miles Morales. I think I just need to play through it again or something like that on maybe a different difficulty, and then I get the platinum. So I think I want to dip back to that. And Returnal being a part of this was very interesting to me because it wasn't a game that I was necessarily super interested in going out and getting. Although I do like the games that come from Housemarque. I like Super Stardust and what's the one that came out on PS4? Not Stardust, but the one that was kind of like it. Oh, the name is escaping me, but I love that one.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, well,
I can never remember their game names.
While you do that, I'll say the fact that
Resogun.
Yes, Resogun. Thank you. I played that across Vita and PlayStation 4, and and that's a really fun one. But having that, if I do upgrade to extra and it's available, I think it's available on there. That would at least get me to be like, okay, maybe I'll give this a shot.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Game Pass appeal. I've talked about that before, where it's like, it's the same thing with Netflix. It's like, all right, I would never pay money to watch, I don't know, Don't Look Up, for example. I'm not going to like go out and like drop $5 on Amazon to rent this movie and watch it. But I'm scrolling through Netflix. It's included with my subscription. I'll throw it on.
Give it a
same
shot.
Thing with like,
yeah,
like 30 Rock. Like, I would not go out and like subscribe to Peacock just to rewatch 30 Rock. But it was on Netflix, so I rewatched 30 Rock because I'm already paying for that subscription fee anyway.
To be fair, everyone should watch 30 Rock, especially if you haven't. But if you have, do it again.
It is very, very good.
That's my public service announcement.
I do enjoy 30
What a week,
Rock.
huh?
And speaking of streaming shows,
before we do though, I did want to ask you, out of these three tiers for PlayStation Plus, if it was up to you, which one appeals to you most? Given the price, given what's included.
That's the trick though, because premium sounds really good because I love me some PS1 and PS2.
Mm-hmm.
However, $120 a year is pricey when I'm already paying so many other subscription services.
Right. Yeah, that's obviously the tricky stuff.
Really starting to add up. Netflix is raising their prices. Amazon Prime is always getting more expensive, and I don't think I'm losing Amazon Prime anytime soon. Like,
I feel like we're all slaves to Amazon.
That's an essential thing at this point for me and for most people. I feel like Netflix has actually been on the chopping block for me lately.
I dropped Netflix at one point, and then my mom said, "I'll bring it back." I said, "Okay, fine."
Well, now they're not letting you share passwords potentially in the future.
I know they're trying it out in like other markets, right? Some places, I believe in South America now. Well, I think that they'll let you do that if you pay another fee.
If they do that,
they just want to make you pay more.
If they do that, I'm out. I think I currently split with my ex, so it's like,
well, that's fine. If my mother's and my father still want to pay, that's fine. But like, if they tell me no, we're not gonna play anymore, I'll be like, all right, see ya. I don't need Netflix.
Yeah. Netflix is a nice to have, but I think I use it a lot less than HBO Max. YouTube is like my go-to now. I don't even pay for that.
As I think we mentioned last week, I've got a lot of movies on Vudu. I won't run out of movies. So if I had to kill all my streaming services and just watch my collection of old movies and TV shows that I have on Vudu, I'm good. I could go just fine.
So all that is to say, I'm thinking extra is the tier that I go.
That's where I'm landing too. I think I could do that.
The thing is, though, is I need to see the game list, like the full complete game, because I own all those games that you listed off as like, here are the ones coming at launch.
Sure.
At least the taste of them. But if there are a bunch of games out there that like I haven't played before, then yeah, I'm going to go in on that, because that's the appeal for Game Pass for me. And also, if there's not a lot of overlap on Game Pass, because like, what if they're like, all right, well, look, here's 100 awesome indie games that you probably wouldn't have bought if you didn't have the service. Like, yeah, 80 of those are on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So
I do think I would have to think for a lot of people out there, any listener can certainly make that decision for themselves. But I do think extra is like kind of like a solid middle ground, especially if you're the type that really does want to play some different games. Like, look, if you play PlayStation because you want to play Fortnite, or you want to play, Warzone or something like that, you got like one game, Madden. If you're just playing that, like, there's no reason you would ever branch out. I don't see why you would. But if you're the type that actually said, okay, let's see what else is out there, I feel like extra is the step, and then premium is probably more if you're like, I need some of those older games and that kind of thing. I don't see premium as all that appealing, to be honest.
Now I have premium is great for the ability to download PS1, PS2 games.
Yeah.
And I couldn't care less about PSP, to be honest.
Yeah. It's not a strong collection. And the only PSP game that I actually care about at all is one that I have on my Vita already. And it is Def Jam Fight for New York Takeover.
Oh,
because that was essentially the port. They added a little bit. I think they actually removed like ever so slight amounts of things. I forget at this point. I couldn't tell you.
What if they put Def Jam on the PS2 collection though?
I will do everything I can to do that.
So you'll do the premium subscription then?
100%. But I don't think that's ever happening, because I think they have to license all that stuff again. I think that's the real problem, because I own the PSP digital copy of TakeOver. So they can't really do anything about that anymore unless they actually revoked it. But it's already on my Vita. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. You know what? I think that I'm probably going to be landing on the extra tier. It's just like I cannot justify another $120 is so much when
That's
like
a lot of money.
I don't even know if my Showtime subscription is still active. I meant to cancel it a while ago, but it's still active because I was like, oh, I'll watch Billions, and I just haven't watched Billions.
Well, but you might as well keep it through the middle of April when Bellator has their finals of the light heavyweight Grand Prix. That's a good event there. I think that's worth watching.
Yeah, but then the bantamweight Grand Prix is just falling apart.
It is.
Good God.
But as I said, I think I said this on social media, this is now becoming a proper mixed martial arts Grand Prix because we're starting to lose like key marquee entrants.
We lost the champion.
It almost doesn't feel like the light heavyweight Grand Prix was a real Grand Prix because we only lost Yoel. That was the only one.
But he was the biggest name in the tournament, aside from,
actually, no, that's not true. We did lose Rumble Johnson. Never mind. It was proper.
Yeah, we lost the two biggest names.
Yeah. Although Vadim Nemkov, I had always felt was the best guy in that.
Nemkov was the best fighter.
Yeah,
but those were the two biggest names, Yoel and Rumble.
100%.
So yeah, I need to cancel my Showtime subscription because I also added a new subscription, which was Paramount Plus, and that's because we have the Halo Paramount Plus series that started last week.
Yes, and this, I wouldn't say is like my very first foray into like the Halo world because I played a few story levels of the first Halo way back in the day, and I've of course played like online multiplayer deathmatch, that type of stuff over the years, but that's not story based. So this was kind of like my real onboarding to the Halo world. So obviously you're much more familiar with it. I think you should probably take the lead on this conversation.
Sure. So, yeah, this is non-canonical, by the way. This is not considered canon in the Halo universe, which there's one thing we're going to try to remain as spoiler-free as possible. I should say to the listener, if they are worried that we're going to say anything and they're trying to skip ahead, don't worry. We're going to do our best to keep this spoiler-free. And if
Brian drops something, then we'll check him. We'll check him.
If I slip up like I did in the Batman, Scott will bleep me or...
no one knew about that, sir.
No, I talked about how I spoiled it later on in the episode, but
okay.
I own up to my mistakes. So
you know what? We all should.
So Halo, there's some things that happen in the show that have just like, it's the first episode and they're happening and they've never happened in like the 20 plus years of the game series running. So there are some things that like you should expect this is going to deviate significantly from the storyline of the games. It's not going to follow one-to-one. Like this takes place very early on in the Halo timeline. And then things happen that don't happen until very late in the Halo timeline, as we know it now anyway. And I think that it's pretty much just like, here's what happens when people who don't really play the games know, like they were briefed on like what the characters are, they were briefed on what the universe is, but they don't know much about the games themselves. Here's what happens if they make a high budget Halo TV series. And overall, I think I'm positive on it, but there are some concerning signs.
Yeah, you sound actually kind of negative on it. I'm actually surprised that you.
Well, they flat out said the showrunner flat out said he's never played the Halo games.
Oh, see, I missed that. Yeah, I hate when there's a disrespect for that. Like, it's okay. You know what? Let me say this: you can't expect everybody to go back and play the video games. I'll give a pass on that kind of thing. Not everybody's a gamer, but I think you as someone who's kind of running a property that especially people care about, that kind of thing. I mean, go watch a long play, or whatever. Just watch a playthrough on YouTube for some of the games. Like really start to understand it. Maybe sit around somebody who cares about the game and play it and kind of experience it alongside them. Just trying to think of ways that you can really kind of attach yourself to it and start to try and understand it. I don't know. Maybe he did that, but yeah, that's distressing to hear.
Yeah, and I will say that they went for it. Like they had a budget for sure on this series, at least at the first episode's any indication. The special effects are very well done. The worlds that they're visiting look extremely high quality. It doesn't look like kind of like that Star Wars Episode 1 like weird glow to everything, like the early 2000s, late 90s CGI. It looks really good. And a lot of these worlds that you're visiting, like I don't think it's I'm not going to say where they go, but because it could be a spoiler, I guess. But they go to a very well-known planet in the Halo universe, and it looks phenomenal. It looks so good. And I will say also, it is extremely violent. So if you were worried they were going to pull some punches, one of the very first scenes is like extremely like R-rated violence. Like
I had to cover my eyes. I was a little scared.
Oh wow.
Nah.
They do a great job of, I mean, you can watch Anderson Silva's leg break in half, but you can't watch that.
I've been extremely desensitized to violence at this point. It actually kind of disturbs me. One real quick thing about Will Smith, though, that whole thing that happened, I watched that and I'm like, oh, interesting. I kind of just moved on.
We really have been
desensitized as much of a thing because I'm so used to violence.
I was watching it with someone who's not an MMA fan. Like I wasn't watching the Oscars, but I heard about this through social media and I brought it up and like we were watching and she was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that was me. I just kind of like met it with a shrug and moved on.
I think Will Smith yelling from the audience is what got me like more like, oh, he's like not messing around. Like the slap, I was like, okay, you could whatever with that.
Well, I was watching live and all that happened was you had like mute for 20 seconds or so. And you're just staring at Chris Rock, who's doing nothing. So I was like, what's going on? And then we just kind of moved on. So I missed all that. I caught it later.
Yeah, you had to go back and watch the uncensored version.
Yeah.
But I guess my key takeaway is they did a really great job making the Covenant, who are people who aren't Halo fans, that's like the main antagonist, at least early on in the series, making that alien race seem like just imposing threats, especially the elites who are in the first Halo game. They were like the top dogs on their side. And like they absolutely wreck shop for anybody who's not a Spartan. And like, so Master Chief is a Spartan. I'm trying to be like as like clear for people who aren't Halo fans. Master Chief is a part of like a super soldier race called the Spartans. And there are a few other Spartans in the series alongside him. And like the Covenant show up and basically like nobody's going to take them down unless they're a Spartan. Like that's the only thing. And that's how they should be, quite frankly. And that's how the first game was. The first game was like, all right, humans are going to shoot at them and they're going to do everything they can. But if it comes down to an elite versus like even 3 humans, the elite is going to take that battle easily. And like, I think they do a great job in this series, making the elites like just that outright menace that they were in that first game. Like now in Halo Infinite or like even like something like Halo 3, you see an elite and you're like, oh, that's a tougher enemy, I guess, than the grunts, but they're not like as feared as they were in that first game.
Sure, they're not elite anymore.
Yeah, they're mid-tier. They're PlayStation Plus extra.
There you go.
But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. There are some stuff. There's some things that happen later on that I'm like, oh, that's a weird choice. And Scott, you and I can talk about that offline, or maybe we can talk about it at a later date once we give our listeners a chance to actually check it out and not spoil it for them now.
For sure. But, but again, I'm coming at this show from a very different perspective than you.
That's why I was curious about what you
basically thought. No attachment to this or understanding of the story. The only thing I know about Halo is that, yeah, there's the Covenant and obviously the Spartans anyway, and Master Chief and Cortana. I'm just naming things that I know. This is the certain. And the reason I'm doing this is because that's literally my knowledge. I know there's the Heretic too in game 2. That's it. These are just words that I've heard and remember hearing, and that's what we've got. So this is where I'm coming from. But with Halo, the show, I will say I'm actually kind of interested in where things go. And it's always weird when you're coming at it from like a true fan perspective, and then someone like me who's just like, well, that could be interesting. I'll check that out. Because you don't start thinking about it like, oh, why are they doing that now? Like, I don't know. And your opinion is in a completely valid way to feel, because there are a lot of people who are going to feel that way. But for me, I'm just kind of like, okay, let's see where kind of some of these world setting up things go. Again, I don't want to get into too deep of spoilers of what happens in the episode, but things happen that essentially set a course for the season, which is, I mean, the most broadest way to describe basically any pilot episode, I suppose. But I'm interested to see where Master Chief's journey takes him. I don't know if I'm going to find him to be the most interesting character, which could be a bit of a problem, but there are side characters that can hopefully give you kind of that human connection, and I guess that kind of thing. So we'll see. I'm open-minded, but I'm starting to wonder already, just like, hey, am I gonna like be really rooting for Master Chief, or am I just gonna be like, yeah, I'm along the ride with him?
One thing I will say is they are taking measures to make Master Chief a much more humanized character than he was in those early games.
Okay.
There are emotional beats in there. There are other things that happen in this first episode that it's like, oh, they are, because like it wasn't really until like Halo 4, Halo 5, and especially Halo Infinite that like he really started becoming like this less robotic, follow orders super soldier. And he started like kind of having like these emotional beats more so than in those first few games. They're jumping right to that with this first episode, and I'm interested to see what they do. And they're even taking it a step further with some other stuff that I am waiting to see if there's any reason for it. So we'll talk more about that at a later date. But
of course.
I think here's what the plan is. I think for us on this show, wait until it'll be 10 weeks that this show is running. It's 10 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of it, we'll give our overall impressions, and we'll end a show with it, so we can just say spoilers.
Turn it off.
Spoiler
Turn
alert.
it off. Spoilers coming.
At the end of the final episode, we'll just be like, look, we're gonna give our overall impressions, spoiler filled. If you haven't seen the show, turn the podcast off now. So
I like it. I
think
that's fair. I think that's fair.
So if you want to watch along with us,
I'm very much a believer in protecting people from spoilers, but I think, yeah, you can engage in that in a responsible way. And I think you're onto something. Put it at the end of the show. No one needs to hear the closing anyway. I mean, when you get to the closing of this show, you should definitely listen hardcore because there's no spoilers. But otherwise, yeah, probably we can do that for him.
So I think that's our plan. For talking about the show spoiler. A thing I can't talk about with spoilers, though, even if I wanted to, is yesterday I went and saw the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie.
Ooh, yeah, I saw that you had done that. What I'm curious, what can you say? And I don't even care about the plot. I'm just kind of like, what can you say about it as far as your impressions?
I can say whatever I want.
All right.
I had a really good time with it. I thought it was like, I liked the first Sonic movie. I was surprised by how much I actually liked this first Sonic movie.
Same. And
it was just a really fun, like, family action movie with a lot of heart and some decent gags here and there. It was okay humor. Like, there were some things that didn't land. Like, I didn't need like the weird pop culture references that were like totally geared towards like, oh, here's something for like the Fortnite kids. It's like, yeah, I didn't need this. But like overall, I liked the first Sonic movie. It was also the last movie I saw before the world shut down. So It's like, I think almost everybody has that experience, like from the gaming world anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Sonic 2 is better, I think, in every way. I think the action is better. I think the jokes are so much better. There are some outright like laugh out loud moments.
Interesting. Okay.
Like there are some really funny jokes and like.
Are they laugh out loud if you played the games or not? Or are they just laugh out loud for like the fans?
They're laugh out loud for anyone, I think. Okay. Like anybody, like some of them are pop culture references. Like other ones are like just funny jokes. Like there was a really funny scene at like near the end of the thing, like where like a big action scene is happening. And I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I was with my editor in chief and like I looked over at him and we're both cracking up because it was so funny. And Ben Schwartz was the one who delivered the line, and I was like, oh well. It's obvious why he's the one who delivered this line because he is a comedian. Mm-hmm. So like he knows how to deliver a funny line and like he sold it perfectly. It was great. And I think that like the action's better, the humor's better, the story is better. It doesn't get bogged down in like the origin story stuff that like, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to get sick of origin stories. Like, there's just so many.
I think, yeah, it's a tough thing because you kind of, you have to set up to a certain degree for people who don't know these characters, because there are a lot of people who, especially like young kids even like may not even understand. Like if I brought my kids have not clamored for these movies or anything like that, but I mean, do we just drop them in and say, yeah, this is Sonic, he's doing this? Maybe that's okay for them, but like maybe they do need an onboarding process.
No,
I don't know.
they need something, but that's what I'm saying is like the first movie, it gets it out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
You can be like, you can just jump right back in with the character. Basically, like the first scene that we see Sonic in is like a scene we see in the trailer where he's like basically serving as like a vigilante in like major cities. Like he's going around and like trying to stop crime, like using his power for good. But he's learning like, all right, what actually is a hero is like kind of like his question that he keeps asking himself throughout this movie. And then there's a lot of good fan service stuff going on, and there's a lot of I'm trying to talk around stuff, so sorry if I'm like kind of being sporadic here.
You know what, how about this, let me ask you a couple more pointed questions to kind of give you a little bit of direction, and again, you can only say what you could say, but what are your thoughts on Tails?
So
who we know we know Tails is in the movie. We know Knuckles is in the movie. This is not surprising anybody.
Tails is awesome because he's voiced by the same voice actor from the games, which is great. Like, you know, Ben Schwartz is not the actor that plays Sonic in the games. That's Roger Craig Smith. Idris Elba, who plays Knuckles, which is so wild to me, is not the actor that plays him in the games. Colleen O'Shaughnessy is the voice actor that played Tails in Sonic Boom, the cartoon series, as well as most of the recent games. And she does an amazing job with Tails. And I think that, clearly she knows how to play that character. She knows how to capture his essence. And she does that great here. And Tails, I think, is largely very well represented in this movie.
Cool.
And then what about Knuckles? Knuckles is very fun because Idris Elba's voice takes a little bit of getting used to, because there were times where Knuckles was talking and I was like, oh, that's Idris Elba. Like it's like, because like it's such a good voice, but also like,
it's Idris Elba.
I know it's Idris Elba. Like I was wondering during the movie, if I did not know this was Idris Elba, would I be taken out of this scene like I kind of am right now? Because like every time he talks, I'm like, oh, that's Idris Elba.
What? Yeah. Obviously, that you're kind of painted by your own experience.
But so I'm wondering, like, if a little kid goes and watches this, and also, his voice is different from what we're used to in the games or in the Sonic Boom TV series. So I'm curious what people who like don't care about like, oh, it's Idris Elba, or if just kids go and they have no idea who that even is. I'm curious what they think, but like, overall, I think he does a great job with the character, and it's nice to see him buy in so much. But that said, nobody buys in more to this movie than Jim Carrey.
I don't think Jim Carrey has ever been beaten in terms of buying in to anything.
Correct. So it's funny because I was introducing somebody to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Great movie.
One of my, if not my favorite movie of all time. And a very, very serious, dramatic Jim Carrey role.
Sure.
And then the next day, I'm watching Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, just going as crazy as he's ever gone in any movie he's ever. Like maybe Mask is the only one that he's gone crazier for. Maybe Riddler in Batman Forever. Like those are like, top tier Jim Carrey just losing his mind on screen. Like this is up there with those in terms of like just how absurd his performance is. And I love that like he is all in on it.
That's great. That is fun.
But I was like, man, this is really like, this is jarring to go from like his performance as Joel in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is just like this subdued, like very serious acting role. There's goofy moments, but like it's 90% very serious and like, tearjerker movie. And then less than 12 hours later, I'm watching him as Dr. Robotnik. And I wish I could reference like this one scene, but like he's like, it's like the body humor you expect from Jim Carrey. Sure. It's like the over the top like line delivery that you expect from like an over the top Jim Carrey performance. So yeah, he does a great job with it, and like all the characters do. Like I don't think there's a bad performance in the bunch, honestly.
All right, yeah, I'm weighing showing my kids the first movie soon, and then maybe we'll go see the one in theaters as well. I don't know, like my kids don't like My kids are so silly. They don't like bad guys. But not just like, kids are supposed to not like the bad guys, but they don't really like watching things with bad guys. So it's kind of like, well, we end up watching a lot of they're just kind of solving their own inner problems type of stories, which is great. I mean, there's a lot of great films like that. I would say
Man versus
Inside
Self
Out
is one of the most compelling types of conflict.
Yeah, of course. And conflicts among each other, like Toy Story, there's bad guys sometimes in Toy Story, but
Sid
also
like
they kind of don't mind that for some degree. So I don't know. I'm going to try it with them, I think, because I think they are ready for it. I bet you most of the at least my oldest son's friends have already watched Sonic and other things too, but they're a little, I've not been of the mind to rush them into watching two things that are too mature. Because I'll tell you, when I was their age, I had already watched like Predator and Jaws and all this other stuff. And it was just like, I'm a messed up guy. I'm not really messed up, but I watch a lot of fights and I'm very desensitized to violence now, right?
I've got good news for you, Scott. If you do want to show them Sonic, that shiny Paramount Plus subscription you have to watch Halo?
Yeah.
I believe Sonic is on there.
I actually own it on Vudu too, though.
Oh, well, there you go. Then, yeah, might as well dip your toe in the water with them and be like, hey, what do you guys think of this movie? Because, like, Dr. Robotnik is a bad guy. There's no doubt about it. But Jim Carrey plays him in a fun way most of the time. He's a fun bad guy. And, like, he's doing stuff to, like, try to take over the world or hurt Sonic or whatever. But it's played for laughs most of the time.
Of course. And, one of my son's buddies had seen it in theaters, I think, at the time, too. So, I know that it's within the age range that he could probably do. It's not a rush to do it. It's more knowing your kid. That's the thing that a lot of people. You don't have children, that's fine. You'll get there if you want to, but I think a lot of people don't understand that like not every kid's just going to be fine with it. And I think my kids would be just fine now, but there was definitely a time where they just wouldn't be.
And I will say that even when Dr. Robotnik is doing like the worst stuff possible in this movie, it's still played largely for laughs. Like there's a lot of stuff going on where like his like ultimate plan is coming together and he's still like Jim Carrey's doing Jim Carrey things.
Now, having said this, I've actually shown at least my oldest. So my boys are 6.5 and 4, by the way. My oldest, I showed him the original Star Wars trilogy. And I've shown him the first two Ninja Turtle movies. So he's seen, it's not like he hasn't seen anything that's been, anything sort of scary or anything before. And they did okay.
Did I ever tell you the first time I saw the Ninja Turtles movie, the first one?
No.
I was a little kid, had the VHS that, starts with the Pizza Hut commercial that I tweeted out the other day. The one.
I didn't recognize it like I watched it when you shared it, but I was like, I don't even remember this one because I didn't watch the first movie as much as I watched the second movie.
Oh, okay. So that's what the first movie starts with, is like that Pizza Hut trailer or a commercial. I remember Raphael saying damn, and I looked at my mom and I was like, what's that word? And she goes, oh, that's a bad word. We don't say that in this house. And I said, and she still tells me about this story sometimes. I said, when I grow up and have my own house, I'm going to say that word.
Nice.
And promises made, promises kept, baby, because I say that word in this house.
You are in your house, and I've heard you say it already.
I guess I don't own my house because I'm a single income millennial.
That's the missing piece, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't keep that promise, but technically this is my own house, even though I'm renting.
There is still time, sir. But you pay rent. That's the place where you inhabit. That's fine.
The place where I reside. Yes.
I think you're okay. I definitely think I'm going to go show them. But that's really good to hear that it's actually even better than the first one.
Yes.
Do you think that that's like a general thought that other people are going to have, or do you think maybe that's unique to you?
I think it's a general thought.
Okay.
I think a lot of people are going to like. I would be surprised if people like this one less. Like, maybe it suffers like the sophomore slump in terms of like review scores because people were very pleasantly surprised by the first Sonic movie. And now they're expecting that with this one. So they might be going with higher expectations. But I think if you look at it as a movie, it is a better overall film, and it executes on the action and the humor so much better. There are some things I don't like about the movie, but they're minor in the grand scheme of things, especially when you talk about like video game movies and like kind of like that pedigree that like we've been conditioned to think like, oh, it's a video game movie, so it, like the ceiling is like a C minus.
It seems like Sonic has really broken through. Is like this is like the first time we've actually gotten video game movies that people seem to really like, as opposed to just like be like
tolerate.
Yeah, it's okay, or debate over. Because like Mortal Kombat it's kind of a debatable one. I didn't even get to see Uncharted yet. I may miss that in theaters, unfortunately, but I'm sure it's coming home soon enough. So that's another one, obviously, that's new and recent. Video games movies are one thing, but mixed martial arts movies, I think, is another one. Have we even got? This is a question that I like to ask now for the Q&A series I do called the Post Fight Interview with New York Post. I ask fighters now: is there a great mixed martial arts movie? And so far, I've only asked this of a couple fighters, and it's kind of been mixed. We've gotten like a hearty no, and then it was actually Julio Arce, who I just spoke to this week. He said that he really likes Here Comes the Boom.
So wait, you were saying Dan Hardy was saying no, or you were saying it was a hearty no?
Hardy,
oh.
a hearty no.
Okay, because you went from like hearty no to Julio Arce.
Oh, no,
I was like, wait,
no.
Was Dan Hardy was the one that said
a very healthy no.
That was a very confusing moment for me. I'm sorry.
And it was not Greg Hardy either.
I did not even remember that name until you said it.
Yeah. Well, he's a former UFC fighter.
Yeah, he's a former MMA fighter. Well. Let's be real.
Didn't fight for a title. He's gone now. Don't miss him.
Obscure MMA fighter that fought on the main card for way too many times.
But yeah, so now that's kind of the question that I'm starting to ask. Is like, is there a great MMA movie? So I guess I posed the question to you because we're already on this topic now. Have you seen a great MMA movie?
The closest I think we've come has been Warrior, and
I
don't think
that's
it's
what a lot of people say.
I don't think it's a great MMA. It's a good MMA movie. Like I would watch it again. I would show it to my dad. You know,
I have watched it again. Actually.
He'll watch some like fights with me and every like if I'm with him and like there's a UFC fight, he's like, oh yeah, let's watch it, or let's buy the pay-per-view, or let's go to a bar and watch it, or something like that. And he always enjoyed. Like we watched 205 together, so he watched Connor become champ.
And that sounds cool. I'm gonna hang out with him.
He is cool. And so we would watch Warrior. I think like I would show that to him, and we'll usually watch like all the MCU movies. Like I'll go see them in theaters, and then like they'll come out on Blu-ray, and I'll be like, hey, let's watch the new Spider-Man movie whenever like we hang out. But
yeah, my dad likes those too, but I don't know that he would like an MMA movie or MMA.
He would like Warrior, I think, but I think the best piece of scripted MMA media is probably Kingdom.
I haven't watched that yet, but that is something that I hear from people. Actually,
really liked it a lot.
Michael Bisping told me that he didn't think there's been like the Rocky of MMA movies, but he thought that Kingdom was pretty good.
Kingdom is so good. It made me really like Frank Grillo, like as an actor. Like I thought he did a really great job with that. And it's clear that they know MMA.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and like they have like actual like MMA people in it. Like Cub Swanson's in the pilot. And
Warrior had some fighters in it too.
Yeah. And
Kurt Angle.
Oh, that's right. Like Matt Hughes is in Kingdom at one point.
Okay.
There's and then like they reference like Jackson Wink a few times throughout it. They reference Dagestan. Like there's one part where like, and I think this is actually like this may even like predate Khabib's like rise to being like the GOAT or like
I forget when Kingdom was airing.
But I remember like there's a scene where like Frank Grillo's character is like, oh, you gotta get your wrestling better, man. Like you gotta go to Dagestan. Like that's where all like the best wrestlers are. And I was like, oh, I wonder if like that was like inspired by Khabib, or like if like somebody who actually knows MMA was like watching and being like, oh, there's like this emerging market coming up here. And like, you know, now we look at it and we're like, oh yeah, Dagestan's where all the best wrestlers come from. And then like it's clear that there are people who like know MMA. Like there's a guy, I don't want to spoil anything really, but like
definitely don't, because I think I'll watch this.
In one of the first episodes, I think of the second season, there's like this is like a non-consequential thing whatsoever. So like it's I guess technically a minor spoiler, but like one of the guys enters a fight with an injury, and he's like not telling anybody because he's like, oh, I can just say I injured it in the fight and then get their insurance to pay for it.
Oh my goodness, this is this sounds right. This sounds
so
right.
Yeah, like there are definite like they explore like kind of like some of the darker side of MMA as well, like the retired fighter who just can't say goodbye.
This sounds like, do you remember, and this isn't MMA, but this is sports related, do you remember the show on ESPN, Playmakers?
Yes, I loved that.
I love Playmakers too. And I love that the NFL hated it and they got it canceled.
They threatened ESPN, if you don't cancel this show, we're going to remove the license from you, even though it never referenced the NFL. Playmakers never referenced the NFL.
Not a one time.
But they were like, this paints football as a whole in a very negative light and implies that this is happening in the NFL.
And the unfortunate thing for the NFL is they know they can do a good job of painting themselves in a negative light on their own. They don't need a TV show to do that. They're perfectly capable as an organization. And we don't even have to get into individuals themselves and kind of the problems with certain individuals. And I will say, Playmakers certainly doubled down or even tripled down on all of the problems that are going on, because there's certainly plenty of well-adjusted individuals that have actual stories that can be told in a compelling drama, and not just everybody is a wife beater or a drug addict or any of these things. But it was an interesting show, and it really showed all the warts and it kind of what you're describing that reminded me of that.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely some elements of that. But the whole story of Kingdom centers around Alvi Kulina, who is a former champion. It seems like it was maybe like a Pride style tournament that he won.
Okay.
And he became like this legend, and he like recently retired and opened up his own gym in California. And a lot of it centers around like his brother's fighting career. He's training like other up and coming fighters, and just kind of his day-to-day life, like managing this MMA gym alongside, I think it's his ex-wife or his wife, and or something. I don't know. There's a lot of really cool dynamics. I don't even know where you can stream it anymore. It used to be on Netflix. I would totally watch it again. I would watch it again with you, like in terms of like,
so we could go through it.
Yeah. Not to again, I've referenced the Co-Main Event podcast several times on this show already, but they did a watch along for the first season, and that's what finally got me to watch it. And then they stopped after the first season, and I just kept going. I was like, I really like the show. And I actually think the show gets better after the first season.
Okay. Yeah, I'm, you know what? I had a thought actually we could do that. Yeah, I get them from time to time. I thought that we could go through this. Sure. We should try and make it like a point to go watch like every movie that's been attempted with MMA in it. And then we can finally do like a definitive ranking of them.
Oh my God. Well, now you're stealing.
It's not going to be fun. We'll be paying a lot, but
you're stealing the nomenclature of my All Things Nintendo segment, definitive ranking.
Oh yeah, I guess so. We won't cannibalize it. We'll change the name.
It looks like it's
Ultimate.
On Peacock.
It'll be the Ultimate. Oh, it's on Peacock.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to buy. I would buy the season. I might just buy the seasons on Amazon. That's how much I like that show.
All right. Yeah.
Let me see how much it is on Amazon, because
I happen to have basically access to every streaming platform, because either my parents have it or they have a DirecTV subscription. So I just log into stuff. I have access to basically anything that I would ever want to watch, which is nice, and I don't pay for a lot of it. So thanks to family.
On Amazon, season 1 is $17, and then season 2 is $11. And
I bet you could get that on sale. You wait.
They don't have season 3, which is weird.
And how many episodes of this series are we talking about here? That's the real question. So it looks like it's 40 overall.
So the interesting thing is season 2 is twice as long. It was a double season. So technically we got 4 seasons, because season 2 is 20 episodes instead of 10. And then season 3, I think, goes back to the 10. But I would highly recommend it. I would be extremely interested to hear what your take was, as somebody who, is much more embedded in the MMA world than I am.
Right.
I obviously love MMA, hence the show that we're doing right now. But I don't have the keen insight into the day-to-day gym life that you do.
Can I just tell you something about the fact that we're talking about a season here that season 2 you mentioned it's split up into 2 parts.
Yes.
This is like this. I think this is the stupidest phenomena that's out there in entertainment, because
like the mid-season
why
break?
Are you just calling it a new season?
Oh, yeah. Like the mid-season break drives me crazy. Like
it's so dumb.
When Sopranos did it, when Breaking Bad did
Breaking Bad. Oh my God. Why just call it another season, like season 6 or the final season, part 1.
There's probably some contractual reason. They were probably like,
I'm sure.
Probably the network was like, we're going to renew you for one more season. And they're like, well, we have 16 episodes worth of stuff to tell. You will, like, a typical season is only 12 episodes. So we're going to do 8 and 8 instead of just 12 straight through.
Well, then what they should start doing is just calling everything season 1, part like 14.
Season 1,
this
part
is just
14.
extend
yes,
these.
I like that.
I mean, I don't want to do that to actors who want to get out of their contracts, but God, that would be turning it into MMA, wouldn't it?
It really would be. Yeah. Speaking of which, Nate Diaz, that's a weird situation, because aren't they, like, I don't know, again, contracts are always going to be different, especially with a big name like Nate Diaz, who seems like he might be a little bit of a nightmare to work with, but isn't he like
he seems high maintenance? I think is probably a fair way to say, at least for the promoter, which look, I don't feel that bad for them.
There's not a whole lot of sympathy coming our way or their way from us.
Not for
but
me.
Like, aren't most UFC contracts, aren't you obligated to be offered a fight within a certain period of time?
My understanding is typically, I think every X months, I want to say 6. But don't quote me on that. And every contract really, in theory, could be different. Nate's in a different case, so maybe there are different contracts negotiated with him. But I want to say it's typically like a 6-month deal. Although there were changes made to a lot of the way the contracts were, in my understanding, based especially on like the reporting of guys like John S. Nash from Bloody Elbow, that talk about the financial stuff all the time. There could be changes that in their typical protocols over the last few years that maybe something like that isn't as important anymore. I don't think so, but my understanding is there's some sort of obligation to offer some form of a fight, but they can offer any fight they want. Realistically, they could say to Nate Diaz, like, here, we'll offer you
Hamzat, but he would love Hamzat.
Well, I mean, I'm almost thinking the other way around. Like we're going to give you tomato candy. It's like, nah, I don't want to fight that. I don't think he would want that. So
it seems like he just wants out of his contract, though, because he seems like it. I think in a perfect world, he'd fight Dustin Poirier or Conor, and then go off into the sunset and box Jake Paul. That seems like what we're setting up for, right?
I'm pretty sure he would love to have the opportunity to do that and make a lot of money for really not that much work, and make a lot more money than Dana would ever pay him.
So I'm surprised, like, because he's making it seem like he just wants out of his contract. He's like, all right, I got one fight on my deal, just set me up with a fight. And it seems like the UFC is not doing that. There's a billion things that could be going on behind the scenes. Like, he could be turning down fights or whatever.
Sure. But we don't know the full story, and
exactly.
Anything either one of them says really can't be taken seriously because Dana's usually just be like, no, he doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to fight. That's like the go-to line. I don't know who's listening to this show that is not a big MMA fan. I don't know if you're coming for the gaming or the fighting or both or neither. Maybe you just really like Brian or I, and that's fine too.
Probably not.
Hi, Mom. But the thing you got to understand is there's just so much posturing and spinning and that kind of thing that anything either one of them says, the truth somewhere in the middle, and it's probably far flung from what's said.
Yeah. Well, I would hate to see Nate leave the UFC, but I think that it's got to be inevitable at this point. He's going to make so much more money elsewhere that unless the UFC, which I guess he's a proven commodity at this point, so it wouldn't.
The UFC's the needle.
Yeah, officially a needle mover. Unknowingly or unbeknownst to Dana, 6 years ago?
Yeah, he miscalculated that one.
Yeah, he really did. But didn't he say that right before the Conor fight, the first one?
He might have.
So it's like, oh, well, that was immediately proven wrong.
Yeah, we didn't. To be fair, we didn't know how much he was going to move the needle until he won that fight. If he loses that fight, his career is different.
But at that point, he was already a fan favorite. It was just to the casuals. He wasn't a needle mover.
Of course.
But like,
but the casuals are the things that move the needle. That
Sure.
in Dana's defense.
Yeah. Well, when you're looking at buys, sure. But like when you're talking like just like hype surrounding a fight, like I'm always excited for a Nate Diaz fight.
Even the hardcores appreciate what he brings to the table because he to borrow from Machine Gun Kelly, he is fighting.
I am weed. I hope that Nate sticks around and is fighting in some MMA organization somewhere, even if he goes to Bellator, like that one tweet seemed to indicate he was interested in, which I don't think he's going to Bellator. I think if he's going to go anywhere, it's going to be to fight in like YouTube boxing matches, unfortunately.
I hope for Nate Diaz's sake that he fights Jake Paul, gets a giant bag, and just walks away.
Yeah,
I will always root for a fighter to be able to find a way to be financially free from fighting. So if that works that way, we've gotten a lot from Nate Diaz, and if we get more, great. If he can find a way out, it's like rooting for Truman to get out of the Truman Show world, to kind of go back to Jim Carrey here. Like you want him to get out. Like you care about him. You're interested in him. You like watching this show. But what was everyone riveted for? We're gonna spoil this one. This movie's 25 years old. Oh
boy.
I don't know what our statute of limitations is, but it's definitely past that.
We established it as 10 weeks.
Is that 10 weeks? Yeah. So I don't know if that's enough for me. But yeah, in that film, like everybody at the end, they're just like, come on. They all want him to leave. Like no one wants him to stay. And that's me. I want every fighter to get their money and get out.
What about a compromise?
What's the compromise?
Where I'm happy and he's happy. Let's get him one of those Israel Adesanya, Jorge Masvidal recent deals where the manager comes out and says he just signed a contract that's going to make him one of the top 5 paid fighters in the UFC.
Yeah, that's great.
But no numbers, no details, but like,
just take our word for it, guys. It's up there.
Believe us.
I don't know what everybody else is making.
Yeah, exactly. We have no idea. We have no idea, but they assure us they have top men working on it.
Top men.
But if he can get that bag in the UFC and take the fights that interest him, that would serve me and also hopefully serve him.
There's not a lot of bags in the UFC.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate reality. I wish it wasn't the case, because realistically, like you hear about the numbers that they try to keep their fighter pay at and fighter compensation.
Like 18%.
I shouldn't even say fighter pay, fighter compensation, because that does include USADA. That's in there. It's a very low percentage, but if you were to up fighter compensation from, I think their target is about 17%, give or take. If they were to up that 2.5 times, imagine every fighter. And if you're a fighter, look at what you made from the UFC last time. Times it by 2.5. If they did that, they wouldn't even get to 50%, which is where a lot of the major sports leagues are.
Well, a lot of major sports leagues have
a ton more money.
My degree is in conflict analysis and dispute resolution.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And
what is no. We're not going to skip past this. I don't know about this one. Tell me how that works.
So it's kind of like, you can use it for a lot of different things, but there's different tracks. There's interpersonal conflict, there's intergroup and international. And I can take tracks based on that. I took a generalist track. But it involves like mediation, negotiation, arbitration, and then like other like international relations style courses.
Excellent. Let's hear how this applies. I love
it. I took a negotiation class, and one of the first classes was, what the strongest union in the country is? It's the NBA Players Association.
I believe it.
And that's because they've come together. They've established themselves as like, hey, look, we have all the bargaining power. Like the owners own the team, the league owns the league, but like if we don't take the court and like they remain strong in that, like nothing happens. Like we see like the MLBPA, even as recently as like a few weeks ago, has been like having to go on strike, but they don't have the walking away power that
they were locked out. It was a little different, but yeah,
like they were threatening to like not sign any type of deals with the owners and the league. because like they weren't liking the terms. We rarely ever hear about that with the NBA. We hear about it with MLB. We hear about it with NHL all the time. NFLPA is a little bit stronger than the MLB and the NHL players associations, but that's just because the NFL rakes in so much money that, like, you know, the biggest things we hear about in the NFL are the health concerns.
Sure.
Like, all right, the quarterback's getting hit, the defenseless receivers getting hit. That's why you have all these rules getting put in place to try to mitigate the lawsuits down the road from like players when it's like, oh, the NFL didn't take any measures to protect us from CTE. And it's like, oh no, we did all this stuff. And that, you know, that's what I think, you know, the cynic in me says that's what the UFC did with establishing the PI. So fighters could go there and, like, you know, if they start saying like, oh, I got all these problems from cutting weight, the UFC could be like, well, did you use the PI? No, I didn't. Oh, well, we provided that to you free of charge for as long as you're a fighter in the UFC, you had access to this and you didn't use our resources. So that's on you. That's something that I think that the UFC PI is going to serve them down the road. That, and then of course that's a cynical look at it, because it also could just be like, hey, we want to bring up the best in our fighters.
You have to be cynical, honestly. And
I've been
when you're
to
talking
PI.
about that side of the fight game, you got to be cynical.
I've been to the PI, and the PI is amazing. I was there when Mayweather McGregor was happening, and like I walked around like Connor's like personal boxing ring that was set up there for the media day, and that was, you know, it's a really nice facility, and I'm glad that the fighters have access to it. I watched as Joseph Benavidez rehabbed his leg. It was interesting, and you know, Francis Ngannou was hanging out there, and it was like it's a really nice facility. But yeah, I think that's totally what that was established for, was to give them a little bit of legal out and a little bit of like a plausible deniability in like, oh, we turned a blind eye to the potential injuries. Like, no, we provided like top doctors and medical professionals and therapists and everything for all of our fighters, and like recovery tools and training mechanisms. We provided all this stuff to them free of charge. They decided to stay in their own facilities. And, you know, when you go to a place that's outside of our control, what can we do?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's totally free of charge. But, you know, if you live anywhere other than Vegas, you got to pay your own way to get there.
That's why you see so many fighters relocating to Vegas, right?
I know. Well, you know, Aljamain Sterling, who I'm actually writing a story on him right now. He owns a second house in Las Vegas. One reason was because he wants to expand his, I guess, his real estate portfolio. He's interested in
Al Iaquinta influence.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, and I mean, Al pretty much told me that as well. But yeah, he's got the house there, but he really loved the fact that he was able to go. There was a billion training partners out there. He had access to the PI, all that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for fighters to be in Las Vegas, but not everybody can be in Las Vegas. So, you know, what are you supposed to do if you were, you know, let's say on that, you know, Dana White Contender Series, 10 to show, 10 to win, 10,000.
That Paddy Pimblett 12-12.
Well, the reason he's at 12-12 is because he won his 10-10 and he got his 2,000 and 2,000 boosts. That's how those contracts work. Unfortunately.
Well, yeah, nobody came to see him in London.
No, but I'll tell you, I've seen fighters who, after 2 or 3 fights from those, they'll get a contract that they're much happier with. The first one will get torn up. I wouldn't be stunned if that happened with Paddy Pimblett, especially now that this happened, where he actually talked about it.
Good for him. Good for Sean O'Malley for saying, you know what? I'm not going to risk getting a bad loss on my record by fighting these top guys until I'm getting paid to risk it.
I respect it to a degree. That's one of those things that, like, it starts to ruin the sport a little bit, but I don't fault the fighter necessarily. I still fault the system. I think the system's the real issue.
Yeah. Well, because like if Paddy goes out there and it's like, oh, fine, I'll fight Ilia Topuria, and then he gets his block knocked off, and like he's due for a contract extension the next fight, it's like, all right, well, you got knocked out cold in your last fight. We're not going to pay you as much. But if he goes out there and crushes another can, then he's going to look a lot better. And crushes another can, tears a roof off another arena like he did this past fight. It's like, yeah, of course the UFC is going to think he's a hotter commodity. So like, I don't fault him one bit for being like, I'm not going to fight like these higher level guys until I'm getting paid more.
He's crushing cans. I think you crushed that analysis there. I think we crushed this show. all of our listeners, if you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe to this show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you found us. That helps our show grow. And while you're at it, would you kindly follow our social handles at Brian Pichet and at Scott_Fontana on Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you so much for listening. And if you want to reach us with questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear about, or just letting us know what you're hyped about, because we want to hear what you're hyped about, hit us up at groundandpwnedpod@gmail.com or at groundandpwned on Twitter. Until then, enjoy the fights, enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you next week.